Alright, my name is Sturgeon and I'm a junior social work student. I did my project on the direct practice that we've been working on all semester and working with a client who is, her name is Lexi. She was 16 and she presented her problem as being a foster child and feeling really left out from her parents because they had 2 biological children, and so she felt as if they were kind of pushing her to the side. She's Caucasian, single, and as stated, she's a foster child and was referred by her foster parents. So her presenting issue was loneliness and depression. She also expressed having some anxiety when it came to social situations. She is the only child in the home who isn't biological, and however, that did not occur at first. They had had her since birth, and then they had some biological children, so it was a recent feeling that she wasn't quite sure how to deal with. So in the intake, I used information giving, close-ended questions, clarification, and interpretation for my skills. Information giving, I used the consent form because it was important that she knew what the limitations of confidentiality were and what was going to kind of go on through the sessions. I also used the intake form that she had filled out, so I knew kind of the basics of her information. And then this is a video. So that video was just going over the consent form that I had stated was a tool that I had used. So then in the assessment, I had used clarification, close-ended questions, information giving, and summarization, and I used a multi-dimensional assessment form so that I could better understand where the client was coming from with her issue and what her kind of background was, so that in the next stage we could kind of build a basis of how we were going to help her through that process.
What we kind of did today was just talk about going through how life at home is and life with your family and school, and kind of work that all in together so that I can kind of help you in further sessions.
So that stage, or that skill was summarization. That was really important because the client at that stage was still pretty awkward in session and wasn't quite sure where things were going, and still building a strong rapport with the client. And so using the summarization helped her know what was coming and then what we had done, and so she was more comfortable. So in this treatment stage, which was where we set the client's goals, I used close-ended questions, interpretation, open-ended questions, and information giving. And so the tools I used was role play to practice her interpersonal skills, because at this point she expressed being kind of a passive person and not really knowing how to address conflict. I also provided some psychoeducation about just interpersonal skills in general, what they were, how to use them, and also about family boundaries, because she had expressed to me that she used to be really close with her mom, but not at all with her dad, and so informing her how family boundaries should be, but then how stereotypically that men don't show their feelings, and that's probably where her dad was coming from.
Is that something that you're going to say there that you're a foster child, are they going to allow you to kind of stay there, or what's the plan for that?
We actually haven't really talked about it, so kind of a little bit. Yeah, I'm not really sure.
So that was a question that I had asked her about what was going to happen when she was out of her foster home, knowing that my client had anxiety, so kind of introducing that before it was kind of a last-minute decision so that she could start thinking about it. So this is a quote from the evidence-based practice that I had used that said, "Every family subsystem is said to have specific tasks and make specific demands on its members, and the development of interpersonal skills achieved in these subsystems is predicted on the subsystem's freedom from interference by other subsystems." So this was used when I had talked to her about family boundaries and how, her mom and her were a system, and then her dad and her were a system, and even the siblings, because she expressed having a lot of love for her younger siblings, even though she was feeling kind of lonely and depressed because of her parents. The second article that I used was to support my use of psychoeducation. It says psychoeducation is a therapeutic approach in terms of client dissatisfaction or ambition, goal setting, skill teaching, satisfaction, or of goal achievement. And so this was used when using the goal setting, because when you set the goals, it's the client leads it. It's up to them to decide where they want to go with the sessions, and so using psychoeducation to inform her, to help her better make the decisions for herself. So then in the evaluation stage, I used open-ended questions, closed-ended questions, summarization, and information giving. And the tools that I used was the evaluation form, which was kind of like a Likert scale from -2, that the goals didn't help at all, to +2, and they helped a lot.
Before you set up your goals, and you were really nervous about some of them. And I know that we've talked in previous sessions and stuff, but I just kind of want to talk to you first, like, how do you think that those went?
They went really well. Definitely gives me a confidence boost in being able to talk to my mom and talk to my friends, opening up about things. So I think the way it's been so much help.
So I asked her how her goals went, and she expressed that they went really well and helped with her confidence boost. And when we had done the evaluation form, she ranked all of the goals, helping her from about a +2, +1 kind of range. Her goals were having better communication with her family, increasing her self-esteem, and making some new friends at school. And so throughout the helping process, she increased all of those skills really well. So 5 things I did well were integrating the SMART goals into the sessions and going over those with the client. Building rapport, it was a little sketchy at first, but then over time, the rapport was built. I did pretty well with negotiation whenever we were discussing interpersonal skills and role play. And eye contact, and then terminating the session went over well. 5 things I would do differently was not being so flat-faced and having better facial expressions. More active listening rather than wanting to just respond to the client and not using silence. I would better repeat the information given to me, and integrating the articles. I had the basis for them and didn't integrate it well when I used it in session. And then when I did the assessment form, having more information to use or integrate it into there so that I would have it for, if this was a real client, kind of making sure that that was a professional document. Are there any questions?
What was the most helpful tool that you used during your sessions?
Probably the role play with her, because she had a really low self-esteem and didn't quite know how to be assertive with someone without sounding rude, and so that was really helpful to boost her self-esteem, that she knew how to, like if her friend asked her to go to a party and she didn't want to due to her social anxiety, she could say no.
I've got a question for you.
Okay.
When it comes to connecting with, this is a youth, if you think about building rapport and that connection, so to speak, what was something that you found worked really well with your client?
Probably being more cheerful with her and kind of like mirroring where she was coming from, because youth don't really want to listen to adults or connect with them, and so really just mirroring where she was coming from really helped build that rapport.
Fantastic, great.
Any other questions? Okay, here's my references, and thank you for coming to my presentation.